are delighted to have you with us today for an insightful session on the intersection of digital innovation and agriculture. So, I'm your moderator for this session. I'm Jerome Rivera Villa. I'm a senior specialist in information systems, system design from the Farming Systems Unit of the SIRS Department. I'm with Joan Holly Torres, also from Erie, and also Sir Emerson Beñado of the AAPI at the back to help us with the facilitation of this session. Yeah. So without further ado, let's get started. But if you have any questions or any clarification as we go along, please jot it down for the QA session right after the topic. So our topic for this first breakout session will revolve around bridging gaps and unlocking opportunities through data-driven decision-making. So for our first topic is a digital platform called D4Ag PH, which explores the digital agriculture landscape of the rice agri-food value chain in the Philippines. Our esteemed speaker is our esteemed speaker is Mr. Arnel Rala from Erie. He is a senior associate scientist in Geoinformatics at Erie with 25 years of experience. He's the one who provided that. He is currently with the Precision Agriculture Subunit of the Digital and Spatial Landscape.
Here's the mic. Spatial Landscape Transformation Unit of the Sustainable Impact through Rice-Based Systems Department. His work revolves around applying geoinformatics in agriculture, particularly in rice research, by harnessing spatial data and cutting-edge technologies to map and monitor rice fields, assess crop status, and optimize resource management. It also extends to creating and utilizing innovative tools and methodologies to improve the efficiency of the research process. Arnel has been instrumental in conceptualizing and developing D4AgPH, the platform, an initiative aimed at understanding and enhancing the digital landscape of the Philippine agriculture sector. Let us all welcome with a round of applause, Mr. Arnel Rala.
Thank you, Jerome. Anyway, it seems like a full house. May standing room pa. Okay. So I agree with Jerome. It's good to have a good meal, but it's better if it's followed by coffee. Okay, so speaker. Thank you. So as Jerome mentioned, my presentation will be about D4AgPH, digital agriculture landscape of the rice agri-food value chain. Okay, so this is the outline of my presentation. I need to give a background about the project. Okay, so because the platform is still at its infancy stage, so we have just launched it this month. Okay, so I'll discuss about the project. Then a little bit about the online platform, our data journey. We thought it would be easy, but it's not. And then some in-depth analysis or insights that we have learned along the way. I'm skipping recommendation. I'm going to the demonstration in how to use the platform. So about the project. So D4Ag actually stands for Assessment of Digital Tools for Data-Driven Decision-Making on Agri-Based Agriculture System in the Philippines. But we did not confine ourselves to rice alone because the system can accommodate all commodities, not just crop, but the other sector in agriculture. So it was initiated by the Department of Agriculture Rice Industry Development Program. They approached us and asked us, what is the status of the digitalization of the rice business? Because they are embarking in these 4 strategies in the MASAGANA program, and one of the cornerstone is the digitalization as a key strategy. So we got funding from the Bureau of Rice Research, and as I mentioned earlier, we did a launching of the platform last May 16. Okay. So these are the questions. Okay. So again, I already mentioned what is the current status of the agricultural landscape. That's one question. And how we know that there are a lot of digital tools, especially those that were developed in collaboration with ERI, Philrice, DA. But how can we make them all interrelated or interoperate? Okay, because we know there's the possibility to do that. How to make them interoperable? Right. And we also know that these digital tools are going or being pushed to the farmer at the grassroots level, with or without their consent. They have to adopt what is being promoted by our government agencies or private sectors or academics and so on. So this is basically what we know so far before we started the project. There are a lot of digital tools, techniques, and so on. They are used as advisory, collect data from the field, analyze spatial and temporal data. Then it is applied across different agri-food value chain, starting from planning up to marketing. There are a lot of tools. And then the strategy, and these different tools are developed by different agencies, government, private, academic, startups or individuals, and so on. All in all, it all boils down to adopt or support a new farmer. Okay. So this is the farmer, surrounded by a lot of tools that we know of or know of. Is equipped with a phone, maybe not a new phone or an old phone. And what we want to try is to brighten his day, being able to use different kinds of tools, or digital tools. Okay, so the project's objectives are the following: to assess the current state of the digital landscape, most importantly, to identify gaps and opportunities. And of course, to look at whether we can design an integrated system or interoperable system, okay, particularly the data that are collected by these tools. So earlier in the plenary, there was a mention of harmonization of data, standardization of how we collect data. And in that way, data from one initiative can be used by the other in another initiative. So there's a little bit of duplicity or duplication of efforts. So this is the digital platform. So we designed this to be intuitive, user-friendly, and responsive. So responsive meaning you could use your tablet, not the smartphones because of the small display screen. From tablet to wide display media such as this. I hope it's interactive, pero hindi. And then the platform provides information about DATs. DATs are digital agricultural tools and services. Okay, and we display that as cards. Okay, so we don't store the apps or the DATs in the system. We just capture information and link to their site. Okay. So basically, it's like a hub. It's a middleman. Okay. And then there are visual insights into the digital agriculture landscape. Okay. So the tool is the platform is available from this address, d4ag.ph.gov.ph. Okay. Kudos to DA ICTS. Their service is quite as fast. So there are 5 main pages, and then the navigation between pages is easy. You could jump from one page to another. Okay. More on this when I did the demo. Okay. So Pages are accessible through the menu bar or the drawer. Yeah. Okay. So a quick glimpse of the dashboard. So there are two main pages in the platform. One is the dashboard that provides you with the listing of all the digital agriculture tools and services, and as well as a provision to visualize the distribution or the number of tools that are encoded in the system and how they are distributed according to various groups. Here it's presented against use case. By use case and also by crop sector or agriculture sector. Let me just browse through this. Okay. There's also a search facility. If you're familiar with a particular tool, you could type that in, or you could provide a generic keyword, let's say rice or pest. Yeah, a bunch of tools will be presented in the list. There's also filtering capability so that you could select based on a particular category or group. So the second important page is the analytics. This is where, let's say, our key decision makers can make use of providing in.
Okay, sorry po, sorry.
Sir Emerson, can you deduct that from my time? Okay. So the analytics page is where insights about the tools or sets of tools are provided. So if let's say our key decision makers are going to create policies and they want to know how many tools are in the agri-food sector or what are the number of tools in the different solutions, such as advisories or e-commerce and so on. This is where they go to. Okay. Technology divide. At least it's consistent, huh? So whoever does the presentation, there's always a problem of clicker malfunctioning. Okay, so there are, from here we provide you with some visual, interactive visualization of the distribution of DATs. You could use a one-factor or a two-factor visualization. But we also provided a quick charts of the distribution based on certain categories. Okay. So you don't have to use this anymore. Okay. So the platform is open to the public. And we did that so that we could spread awareness of the different kinds of tools that are out there. And also to provide an avenue for adaptation or adoptions. Also, we are hoping that it will provide a setting for learnings, collaboration and co-development, and then most importantly, investment. Okay? Because there are sectors in the agri-food value chain that have very few tools that where investor might pour in some resources. Okay. So, but our target end user actually are four key decision makers. Okay, so there earlier it was mentioned, as I've said, we need standardization, harmonization, and those things can be done through policies. Of course, sharing, of course, data. Local agriculture offices, so that they won't be just limited, okay, this is what we know, This is what we were introduced to, but there might be other sets out there. Of course, tech-savvy farmers, and of course, most importantly, innovators, especially the startups. Okay, so that's the platform in general. But to come up with that platform, we need data to make it work, right? So this is our data journey. So we thought at first it would be very easy. Okay, just go to Apple Play Store or Google Play Store, ChatGPT. Of course, our own backyard here and DA and so on. We look at that. And then other sources. But it was difficult to get concrete information or substantial information. We know of the name, we know of the logo, we know of the link, but sometimes to categorize them, it was a bit difficult. So we ended up utilizing context clue in the description to satisfy some of the categorization or mapping. So we did an online and offline search starting from ERI. DA, PhilRice, ATI. We look at several sources as well, like the Sarai, DOST, Knowledge Management, Digital Agri Hub, which is similar, or where we got the inspiration in the design of the D4Ag PH. Grow Asia, TrackCN. This one keeps track of registered startup. And of course, Google Play, ChatGPT, and Apple Play Store. Those are the different sources that we tapped into. And then we employ a very simple criteria. One, is it used in the Philippines? Is it for agriculture? And then is it accessible? More than 50% are not accessible. They were just there. Some links are broken. Some were mixed match of words. Thanks to ChatGPT. So we have 204 names of digital tools listed. And then we filtered that. We reviewed 89. So these are accessible, used in the Philippines, and it's for agriculture. Then we followed this workflow of determining whether it's worthy of being published. And then we came up with that's 67 published. Right now it's 66. Okay. One of the link was broken. One of the links to the tool was broken. So we remove it from the list. Okay. Okay, so that's the data journey. Some lessons learned or analysis coming from the compilation of the tool. Okay, majority are focused on the crop sector. Very few invested in fishery, livestock, and orchard or plantation. Okay, within the crop sector, again, majority are in the production, input and production in the form of advisory, finance, a little bit of finance, pest monitor, crop management, soil management, fertilizer, and so on. Okay, so this is just a breakdown of the distribution or inside the inputs and production area. Oh, sorry, agri-food value chain. Okay. So notice that inputs and production occupy almost 50% of the pie. Little is in processing, consolidation. A few are in wholesaling and retailing. Okay. In terms of solutions, there are a lot of advisory and marketing. So these are example of the tools or DATs for advisory in terms of marketing. So if we map them out or we group them up, so that thing is blocking the top view. So there's input, production, consolidation, processing, wholesale, retailing, and consumption. This is actually the value chain defined in the MASAGANA program. Okay, so the one in the bottom are the generically accepted value chain. Okay. So notice that a lot of the apps that or the dots that we have screened are in this two portion. Some are in wholesaling, retailing, probably because due to the pandemic, there's a lot of digitalization in terms of purchasing or transaction online for food. Very few are in the consolidation processing. What we found is easy harvest. Also out there is the M3, I forgot. M3 does, thank you, yeah. So this one is not alone anymore. Yeah, so come on. Oh, okay. So this group of dots are actually offering more than one solution. So from advisory, they could go on to other services in the production area. Actually, some even go as far as marketing, wholesaling. Okay. All right. So if you're a policymaker or an investor, want to make some quick investment, you know where to go to. Okay, there are a lot already here. You could invest somewhere here or in here. So some other facts that came out in the analysis. So 57 are single case or just dedicated to one solution. There are 23 more than two solutions, 20% is more than, 23% two solutions or use case, and more than two solution or use case are 20%. And these are some of the combinations of solutions that are offered. Okay, in terms of maturity level, only a few are in the pilot stage right now. Most are scaled out, and the rest are commercialized. So for those who don't know what's the difference between scaled out and commercialization, there's a monetary return in terms of commercialization. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, most of the dots are developed as a mobile app, and we know farmer right now are a bit averse in using mobile app. So it's so small, the text is small. It was characterized already. Only the young ones and the female or the wives use those. There are also a lot of web-based platforms. A bit on Facebook, okay. But when we went out to the field and did some key information survey or focus group survey, most of the things that came out that they are looking at Facebook, SMS service, YouTube, which is a far cry from here. So there's what we call how do you term that? Input coming from the end user in terms of what platform they find useful. Okay. Looking at avenue for interoperability, from here we focused on apps that were developed or co-developed by DA and ERI. That's where we have access to. The other apps that we looked at, we were barred, or we have no further response when we started dishing out or distributing invitations. That if we could look at what are they collecting and what data are they generating. Okay. So from here, these are the general groups: farmer profile, field profile, crop information, soil profile, the more specific data that they are collecting, and these are the tools that are collecting them. So from here, you could easily see if we are able to create standard specifications during the design of these tools, then perhaps it would, what Glenn and Yusek, Chris has mentioned that tools or data can be used from one app to another, and we don't have to collect the same sets of data again and again. All right, so these are the other groups. Right. So apart from doing our desk work, we went out into the field. What is really happening? Our farmers or our agriculture workers, extension agent, what tools are they using? Okay. So we need some engagement, not just from them, but also from the developers. Okay. So this is a wordful, but I have bolded or highlighted some of the keywords. So AEWs, or local government unit as well, extension agents, are familiar with some of the tools, primarily because it's part of their task already. So it's in their plantilla to do this, to extend or introduce this kind of tools. One particular tool is RCMAS. Okay. I'm not just advertising this because I'm from Erie, we developed this. But LGUs are promoting this because it is mandated for them to promote, and there have been budget for that. Other tools developed by PhilRice, like the Mowet app, Bining Palay, they're aware of it, but they don't have the confidence really to disseminate or to use the tool. And so they're asking for more interventions in that things. Again, they want to have this confidence, their confidence level to a certain degree for them to explain it better to the end users. Now, in terms of farmers, they are aware, but they're not using it. So most of the dots, okay, they rather go to Facebook, YouTube. So YouTube, because they have learning videos. They want to see that. It's also entertaining. Okay. So they again demonstrate familiarity and usage of some of the tools being pushed by PhilRice, also by ATI in their DFP program. Okay. But majority of the farmers are really unaware. And so where's that? Here. But they express the willingness to learn, especially if it will benefit their in terms of production or rice production. Okay. So it is important earlier that it was mentioned that the youth has a role in the utilization of these tools, because they are the ones who are more, let's say, adapted into using the technology. Okay. Some barriers that were pointed by the farmers, they have very technical, limited technical knowledge, unless they are of the digital generation. Okay. So they have insufficient exposure, lack of access to gadgets, okay, such as smartphones, and most importantly, network infrastructure. So they struggle with the connection. So why buy load when they could invest that portion on some other things? Okay. So this is a project by Benny, our city lead. So try to measure, is the technology in terms of innovation readiness matches with the innovation use. Okay. So as mentioned earlier, RCMAS has been pushed with the support of the local government unit by DA. So that's why it has a high readiness as well as high innovation use. Some of the players like Go Eden, earlier you heard her mention their application, as well as AgriDome, they are all innovation ready. They have a plan, but their use is a little bit ahead of 50% in terms of score. So what's the purpose of this? So we have introduced this so that the developer can see where they are lacking. If they're going to invest more in terms of developing the software, or it's now time to invest more in terms of disseminating or encouraging more utilizers. Okay, that's the last slide, and this is the D4Ag PH team. Time for the demo. Okay. So when you access the site, there's a disclaimer. Okay. The data that is in the database is not, it's just a tip of the iceberg, as we could say. There are more dots out there. It's just that in the span of time that we're working on it, the dots that are here are the ones that we have evaluated. Let me just work on. Okay. So it will open up the dashboard. Then it would show 66 dots are in the database, 42 are single row, 24 are multi-row or offer more than one solutions. Hi, Mac. Okay, and this is where the different tools are presented as cards. So some the salient information are presented here, but when you tap on it, tap, it doesn't tap. Use more. Huh, what happened? Okay, so most of the information here came from the Prime website. Okay. Yeah, and I guess it's self-explanatory here. Last 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Last 2 minutes. So go back to the dashboard. If, let's say, a user wants to look for apps that are for pests, it will list down all the apps for pests and you know, keywords like rice and so on. Even potato or fish is applicable. Going to the analytics. Okay. So these are the quick charts showing you number of cases. I think that's based on use case, case implemented, distribution in the agri sector, maturity level, target users, developers, and so on. And then you could play with, inquire using this interactive portion. Let's say I want to look at agri sector against business model. So what does it show you? The different sector and then the whether it's free, it's paid, or otherwise, like time's up. All right. So I encourage you to visit the site. Again, I said it's at its infancy stage. So any feedback are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnel Rala, for that very informative presentation. So you can access this at d4agph.da.gov.ph. So if you have any questions, does anyone have any questions?
So,
Yeah.
so we have these apps available now, even by platforms, whatever we call it. But my main question now is sometimes there's this sustainability of the product. We do have end of life of some products because of lack of funding and all of that. How is this addressed, and then how it will be properly turned over? Is it part of the agreement? Because it happened to me once in one of our projects. The sustainability of one web platform is really also difficult because you have developers with it, the infra, and yeah, that's my main question: how to properly sustain it or make it available, and if it, especially if it's still usable, you know, if you see the analytics of the people using it, no, that's my main question.
Thank you for that question. Are you referring to the D4Ag platform? Because-
the different apps.
Okay, because the apps, we don't have any control over it. So I can't answer that. As for the D4Ag PH platform, so together with offices of DA, we develop a draft of the sustainability plan. So in that plan, it was outlined how the database will be maintained, how the infrastructure will be maintained. Okay. So we have turned over the entire product to DA. It's now on their side. If we are going to revisit the draft and make it workable.
Is it like 5 years or so? Or
I can't say. It's up to DA now to
their mode?
tell us what to do. But on the brighter side, when we launched the product, there was positive feedback. Okay. We have recommendations, and that recommendations, they said, will have to be translated into memo or policies. One of the recommendations is, of course, the standardization, as well as the, what's the other one? Anyway, in the interest of time, I forgot.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then, of course, the sustainability part. One of the entry there is that offices in DA will look at where they are an expert at, what sector they are or what commodity they are an expert, and see if those apps there are still valid, and if there are new apps, they could update. Okay. I failed to mention there is a data entry apps, and then we sent out invitations, hoping that developers would encode what they have produced. So we've been engaging in some of the activities in the past, like the Cashless Expo, the conferences, and we've been promoting this. So hopefully there will be takers.
All right.
All right, thank you for that question. So due to time constraints, you can accommodate all questions. Actually, we just had one. So, but you can still go to Sir Arnel if you have any questions right after this breakout session, or maybe just get his email so you can contact him. Yeah. And yeah, a round of applause, please, again for Sir Arnel. All right, so for our next topic, we will proceed to our next topic. Our next topic is GLOMIC, spearheading data-driven decision-making with actionable market intelligence. This session will be led by Dr. Matty Demon from the International Rice Research Institute. He is a principal scientist for market and food systems research, leading the Inclusive Markets and Value Chains Unit at IRRI. As the lead of the CGIR initiative on market intelligence, he oversees a global research portfolio on market intelligence aiming at maximizing investment returns in genetic innovation through more market-driven and inclusive product design. He has more than 20 years of experience leading research on food system transformation throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia. He acquired vast field experience through numerous surveys, value chain analysis, and behavioral experiments with consumers, farmers, food companies, and breeders. He is a renowned expert in agricultural market intelligence and has played a pivotal role in developing GeoMate. A warm applause, please, for Matthew.
Magandang tanghali. And you memorize that for the 45 minutes that the first presenter took, at least 1 hour. So thanks for leaving me 15 minutes to explain something that took more than a year and a half to develop. So I'm presenting here the team. Some of the team members are here. I hope Neil can assist me later on. Browsing below me. Joan is also here. Joan is over there. Bing is also there, and Dana is also there. Melanie is based in Africa, and Bert is based in Belgium. So what is this about? We're going to move back a bit and upstream into the innovation system, right? We're going to go away a bit from farmers, take a bit distance, and look at R&D. How can we prioritize R&D? That's an essential question IRI is dealing with every day. Next, please. So we developed a tool. Basically, it was a demand from breeding. The breeders, they're breeding in several environments, and they want, in fact, actionable market intelligence to make sure they're really breeding for what the market needs, but also the problems that are out there, that there is an alignment. Not just an alignment, but also that there is a tool or a way they can prioritize. Why should we invest in India in rice versus beans in West Africa? Things like that. So we're going to also move away from just rice. Here we're going to look at all the crops from the CGR. So CGR is in fact the organization that has IRI and other commodity institutes. And so we're going to go further, and we're going to look at multiple crops, 21 crops in the CG, rice, wheat, and so forth. And so we developed a tool that can empower the CGR to make R&D investment decisions. Next. So on the 7th of June, we're going to launch this. So this is in fact some kind of preview. You can already go online. It's available since July last year, but we're only launching it on the 7th of June, 2024. So it's a big moment for us. Next, please. So what is the challenge? Market intelligence is often fragmented. It's in bits and pieces. And what is in fact market intelligence? If I ask every one of you to define it, we'll get, I guess there are 50 people, 50 different definitions. Nobody really has a uniform definition of what is market intelligence. In the private sector, it's easier. Market intelligence is what your market needs and wants and what they're willing to pay for, such that you can make profits, right? It's a very caricaturistic way of viewing, I know. But in CGR, it's way more complex. We are not here to earn profits. We are here to solve world problems. So market intelligence is then, in fact, any information that can help us solving those world problems while making sure what we develop is also liked. If we develop a rice variety that solves many problems, but the consumers don't want to eat it, we will not be successful. Or if farmers don't want to plant it, or governments don't want to plant it, I'm not mentioning any particular technology here, but I'm sure we all know what we're talking about, right? So that's market intelligence. And market intelligence can come from various sources. Next. So we developed this kind of pipeline. How can we influence the breeders? I mean, the breeders, they know it. They know everything already. When you talk to the breeders, they have their own perception, and it's not always wrong. Breeders, they work with farmers, and farmers know what the market wants. They're connected to the market. So breeders, they implicitly use market intelligence. And often this was really very well targeted, but we can still improve. What breeders maybe are lacking is that forward-looking view. they may not know what's going to happen in 10, 15 years. And that's important for a huge institution like CGR in order to really invest in the areas where the future benefits are going to be. So we have this kind of internal pipeline. It starts with looking at the world, trying to find what are the opportunities out there in the world, right? Regardless of the crop, regardless of the country. We look at 5 impact areas: nutrition, poverty, gender, environment, and climate. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to kind of divide your world into understandable, homogeneous pieces. And that's what we call market segments. You need to segment your world. And the sub-regional level, multiple countries, is the typical level that CGR breeding pipelines operate at. We are not interested in every single country because we're not working for every single country separately. The national systems do that. But we want to make sure the germplasm we provide are consistent by region, such that the national systems can further refine. So we then influence product design. We try to understand those market segments. So one glimpse I can give you already, market intelligence, there are like 2 levels. Either it's bottom up. You go to the farmers, you ask them what you want. You go to the consumer, you go to the governments, you ask them what do you need, what do you want? Or top down, you analyze what are the problems out there, and then you assume that if there is a huge problem, for instance, let's say undernourishment, you then assume that there must be a market for varieties that address that problem, right? So top down is like indicator driven. You can do that from a desktop by downloading data sources, understanding the world. And bottom down, then you need to put your boots on, go to the ground, talk to people. And you need both levels. In fact, that's what we do in each market segment. So we then go to product design. We try to influence that. What do we try to do? We try to make sure that we breed varieties that has the right traits in them that address those needs that we identified in the markets. So that is in short what we do. We have several milestones that we went through. And it's only since 2023 that we now have this tool available. So there is no time to really go into details, but this is in general how we go. Next. So what problems does GLOMIP solve? Today, we're going to just look at this portal, the Impact Opportunities portal. That's really the first starting point. Looking at the world, understanding the world before we start segmenting. You can visit GLOMIP. If you move this a bit up, you can use that QR code. Strategic place for that.
Sorry.
You can visit the market segments that the whole CGR has defined, more than 500 market segments for 20 crops. You could see where are we really targeting our investments right now, which we can of course refine through market intelligence. And what are the future varieties we have in mind for those regions? These are the targets that the breeders are using in their pipelines. You can even visit the product catalog. What are the varieties that are already out there? Next. So impact opportunities, that's really going to be the focus. And here is an innovation we created. When you go to Faustat, you'll find data by country about world problems, right? World Bank, any data source. So impact challenges, you don't need GLOMIP for that. I mean, you can use it. It's also there. Impact challenges, for instance, how many people are there in a certain country in extreme poverty? That's an impact challenge, right? That we want to address. We want to solve that. So on the one hand, you have an impact challenge. So this, you can turn that into an opportunity. If you're able to address extreme poverty, then that becomes an opportunity. Often the entire challenge is not the entire opportunity. Often you're not able to really eradicate everything in the short run. Maybe in the long run you can, but in the short run, the opportunity is always a bit smaller. It's a subset of your challenge, right? Next. So, and an opportunity is not just an opportunity for breeding, genetic innovation I'm putting here, but also for agronomy. Each of those pieces of interventions, they remove certain people out of extreme poverty. And you can really address poverty through several interventions, each of them having an impact, some of them overlapping. So there are like multiple ways to address that opportunity. So the opportunity is really the overarching part of the challenge you will be able to address through investment. and then it can come from different fields, but it's a good starting point. Next. So let's go back to that impact challenge. Imagine 5 million people in extreme poverty, and then we have a crop, for instance, rice, 10 million people depending on rice production and consumption. If both don't overlap, there is not much opportunity you have for intervention, right? If the people that are in extreme poverty are living here, and the people growing rice are living there, and there is no overlap, there are no people living in extreme poverty, there's not much you can do through rice, right? I mean, directly, indirectly maybe. Indirectly, you can affect the lives of the people here, but if there are no extreme poor people here, you cannot lift people out of extreme poverty, right? So there is, in fact, no direct impact opportunity here. But once they start overlapping, when the extremely poor people are also the ones that are growing and consuming rice, then you have an opportunity. For instance, in this case, you then have, let's say, the opportunity to lift 1 million people out of poverty. Next. If the impact challenge increases, if there are more people under extreme poverty, for example, then of course your opportunity increases. On the other hand, if the crop is becoming more important, like for instance in Asia, rice is so important, that it gives you also more opportunity to address some of the challenges. Next. So let's go back. And then finally, when both come closer together, when they start overlapping more, almost with or without causality, best example is greenhouse gases, right? Rice typically produces a lot of greenhouse gases. So it's a problem that is also a bit related to how rice is grown, but it's also an opportunity. If we can reduce that, then it becomes an opportunity. So the more the problem is correlated with the crop, where the crop is grown, the more opportunity it gives you to address it through the crop. There are two ways. Either you address it through the crop, you make the crop such that it can address the opportunity or the impact challenge, or you tell the governments to stop growing the crop because there isn't a correlation between both. I can guess you imagine which one is the easiest, right? So this is how you can look at opportunities. Next. So I think it's time for a demo. I think it's good to spend slightly more time on the demo. So I'll ask Neil to assist me. So the website is simple, glomip.cgr.org. So we're going to explore the Impact Opportunities portal. So let me start with a question for the audience. Before I worked for IRI, I lived in Senegal. I worked for the African Rice Network. Which of the two countries, Senegal versus Philippines, has the most undernourished people? Who thinks Senegal? It's in Africa. It's in West Africa. Who thinks Philippines? Wow, what a passive audience. Okay, your last chance. Senegal, raise your hand. Who thinks Senegal has the most undernourished people? West Africa. Who thinks Philippines has the most undernourished people? So let's have Neil find out. So here is the box of impact area. You have 5 impact areas. Let's take the nutrition, health, and food security impact area. Okay. Okay. That's an impact area indicated undernourished population. By the way, there are more than 200 indicators here over 5 impact areas. Undernourished population. We look at national level. So here are the different scaling levels. Show data by country. And now you can filter also the countries. Let's remove all the countries and just have Senegal there and Philippines to make it easy. So this allows us to really see, okay, which country if we want to address undernourishment, this is Africa. Senegal. Why is that? Very simple. There are more people in the Philippines. So you have more undernourished also. But we can also make it scale independent. Let's now take percentage of people undernourished. Maybe it looks differently. Okay.
Still right.
Run, please.
Oh,
It looks completely different.
Oh.
I think Senegal is now leading. So we learned our first lesson. Prioritization based on opportunities depending on how you frame the indicator. And it's a different behavior. If you're a donor who wants to impress the board by numbers, we reached 5 million people. Then you might want to use what we call a magnitude indicator, like how many people are undernourished, right? But if you're a donor who's not so much interested in impressing their boards, but more like making a difference in the world, maybe you want to be there, you invest there where the problem is biggest, right? Relatively, in relative terms. Then you take a percentage. You take what we call a prevalence estimate. That's kind of the first thing we learned. Next example. I already revealed the answer. Which crop has the highest greenhouse gas emissions? You already know, rice. But what is the second highest, you think? So Neil is going to climate adaptation and mitigation. Greenhouse gas emissions is part of the climate mitigation.
GHG.
Greenhouse gas emissions, okay. By the way, those are spatial indicators. They're very refined up to the grid level. No, it's not environmental.
Oh, sorry.
It's climate. And greenhouse gas emissions here.
I think.
Take the first one. So we'll take the magnitude first, right? How many tons of greenhouse gases are emitted?
Philippines versus Senegal.
And now you can do the second scaling level, national crop. So remember, national crop is we're now going to overlay the problem with where the crop is grown. Remember that? And that's the innovation of Glowmaker, that you overlay those things. You will not find any other place, any other online database where you find that overlap. That's the innovation we do. We overlap them. You can downscale the national statistics or the spatial statistics up to the crop level. You can now look at it at crop basis. And so that gives you a comparison if you want to compare crops. So let's show data by crop group first. Let's crop group first. So let's first start broad. Instead of talking crops, we talk about crop groups, cereals, roots, tubers. Okay, for the rest, nothing. You don't have to do anything. No, it's already.
For the country filter.
Yeah, you can keep all the countries. Yeah, that's no problem. Okay, so cereals, these are the ones, right, with the highest greenhouse gas emissions. Followed by legumes, fruits, bananas, roots, and so forth. Really the cereals. When we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, it's the cereals. So let's zoom in at crop level. And let's focus on CGR only. Deselect all. Go up.
Focus country.
Focus countries, that's CGR. Yeah. So it gives us a smaller selection. And you see, rice is really dominating the picture, and maize was the second one. So times 207. We have 207 indicators that you can go through individually. We once calculated, there are many more things you can do. The number of things, visualizations you can create here are more than there are atoms in the universe. So you can spend an entire lifetime going to the globe. I wish you have other things to do. So let's quickly demo a few other. So instead of going indicator by indicator, you can also see them simultaneously. So maybe reset everything. Okay, national focus good. We can go crop group, or no, let's do UN region. UN region. National. We go back to the national level. Okay. No, and we need to go to multiple.
Maganda.
Okay, no selection. Yeah. We show this. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at the United Nations regions. Those are the roughest way you can divide the world. Asia, Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, Europe, and so forth. Look at all the indicators. Now we're just looking at the magnitude indicators. When you go down,
Sorry. I don't know why. What happened? Wait.
so when you go down, you'll see a second one. You can go back, please. Run.
It's just refresh. Sorry.
That's, by the way, the default graph that you get. GlobeWeb is a bit slow because there are an enormous amount of calculations that are happening in the back end. So here you have all those individual tree maps that we saw. Remember those block maps? It's called a tree map, I don't know why. You can put them next to each other, juxtapose them, and see which of the aggregates that we define, in this case the regions, is capturing the largest share of each. And we really see Asia dominating overall, probably because of it has the highest populations. So also the highest impact opportunities across the 5 impact areas. This is the nutrition, poverty, gender, climate, environment. And we see Asia mostly capturing impact opportunities in this dimension. Anybody, any idea why that is? This is the climate and environment. I think Asia, because of population increase, has been pushed to its limits. And that's why it's becoming very vulnerable to sustainability issues. Climate adaptation, mitigation, sustainability, environmental issues, they're pushed to the limits. While Africa is much more dominating in those first 3 impact areas. Africa, relatively speaking, is more dealing with nutrition issues, poverty reduction, and equality issues, gender equality issues. So that's a kind of things you can do. You can do that at all levels. And then finally, maybe scroll down. You can also look at prevalence indicators. It's a bit more shaky because those are the percentages. It's a bit more difficult to interpret. I find the first one always easier to interpret. So this is, go back up, please. This is easier to interpret, but it's magnitudes. And remember, we all learned one lesson today, I hope. Depends on the indicator. When you look at the magnitude indicator versus a prevalence indicator, you get a different prioritization. So finally, if you don't want to look at all those indicators individually, there is a way you can bring them back to a single priority index. And that looks very similar to the single indicator scenario. And there are additional things you can do. One thing we realized is that prioritization depends on your investment preferences. There is no right and wrong. There is no, go back up please. There's no impact area that is normatively more important than another. You cannot say nutrition is more important than poverty. It depends on your preferences as a donor or as a government. Governments have their priorities that they want to deal with. Maybe first solve poverty, then nutrition, or the opposite. So here you can set your preferences. There are even more options. You can even weigh between those magnitude versus prevalence indicators. You can put your weight there. You really want to prioritize based on the numbers or based on the reaching the most marginalized. So you can set it there and you bring all the 207 indicators in a single priority index. For instance, here we look that's based on all the indicators together and based on the settings. Go up, please. These settings, they're all in the middle, meaning we find all the impact areas important. We see that Asia still is exposed to the highest impact opportunities across the 5 impact areas, followed by Africa. Now let's do one last thing. Here, it says present, future. We have present indicators, like the most recent estimate, but also projections. 20% of our indicators are projections. Let's see what happens when we move that up to the future. This is 2030, 2050. How the priorities change. Patience. Africa. You see, now Africa is topping the list. Meaning, the biggest population increases are expected in Africa. So the biggest impact opportunities are expected to be in Africa in the future. So there are endless things you can do with GLOMIP. I hope you'll explore it. And if you have any questions, you can send us an email. Our address is glomip@iri.org. Thanks a lot for your attention, and any questions are welcome.
All right, thank you, Mari, for that presentation. So we'll open the floor for a brief Q&A. So if you have any questions about GLOMIP and its applications, you may do so now. So who wants to go first? Pwede in Tagalog. Translate na lang po ni Neil. Who wants? There. Let me go.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I'm Hannah from the Foundation. I'm just curious, I'm assuming that the information there is based from several data, right? So how is the process of getting those data? Is it like from published projects or applications, or are there partner groups that you get the data from?
It's a combination of everything you mentioned. So some are available from official websites like Faustat, World Bank, and so forth. Others come from projects and collaborations, which are mentioned on GLOMIP, who are the collaborators. In other cases, we provide funding to some of our other centers to collect the data, or to make cases for data sets to be collected. But everything is indicated in GLOMIP. Whenever you see this in a single indicator, you can see indicator by indicator what the source is. You can also go to the indicator catalog, and there you can browse the different sources. And yeah, it's in many cases we're also trying to be clever, because once you start having all those data sets together, you can do clever things with them. You can combine them in certain ways, and the more you have, the more power you have to create something new that was never done before. So that is also something that really helped us moving forward very fast and making the best use of what is available.
All right, thank you for that, Matty. Another question? Who wants to go and ask? I think everyone's shy to ask. But yeah, going once. All right, question.
Is the intention to keep this free for a long time?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the idea of a global public good. I think CGR has a competitive advantage in having this global view. Countries themselves, they're only interested in that world view in as far as it influences their import and their export markets, right? You want to understand the world if you want to export and earn money. But they don't have an incentive to really get the full picture, right? And so that's our competitive advantage in CGR, providing the global public good and then making sure we maintain that. So that's still the idea, to keep this free and open.
All right.
Online question.
Last question for this topic.
There's an online
So
question.
right now it's until functional level. Do you plan to go a little bit lower in terms of the intensity?
55 of our 207 indicators are spatial, so they're at the grid level, subnational, the smallest level possible, right? And I think part of that are also estimates that are at crop level, so they're like down at the national level. The rest, 207 minus 55, are national statistics, which are very useful. But if you want to assess them at crop level, we use downscaling techniques, which are a bit rough. They work very well in a comparison way when you compare different countries, but you should not use them as absolute estimates. If you're really a spatial scientist, you can also filter out only the spatial indicators and only work with them. All those functionalities are there. You can just select the ones that have a globe icon, and then you're only working spatially. So if you want more robustness, that's something to
For your question, we'll get back to you. Online question. Sabihin mo nilang sasagutin nila.
All right, so we have an online question, but we can accommodate it. But I think Matty and the group can answer that. So just have to reach out to them. I think Matty can provide his email, or the group can also contact the person who asked from the online. All right, so thank you all for your participation and engaging